Hi, welcome. Today's podcast is going to be an interview with Bob Kinney, who I've known for a long time. And this, I think, is my first podcast where I'm actually interviewing an athlete. And Bob is a local legend in the sport of triathlon. And today we're going to be talking about preparation for triathlons. We're at the beginning of a season. Bob raced last weekend and made it to the podium. So I'm going to start off and I'm going to be sharing my screen. And again, welcome, Bob.
Good to be here.
Yeah. And so again, we're just going to have fun with this and hope you enjoy it. And again, it's about the title of our talk is Preparation to Podium, and how important that is to be successful in the sport of triathlon. Again, we're going to be focusing primarily on the sprint races, and the sprint races are the shortest distance in triathlon. And it's a little bit different than the Ironmans or the half Ironmans, which are much longer events, but the same principles apply. So Bob, take it away. Tell us a little bit about your triathlon background, maybe how you got started, how long you've been doing it, and
Sure.
so forth.
I started in 1987. I was recruited as a cycling leg of a relay team at a race that used to be up in Lake San Antonio by Paso Robles called the Wildflower. And went up with a couple of buddies. We raced. We actually, believe it or not, got on the podium, which was pretty awesome. They were obviously a great swimmer and a great runner. So we got fourth place, I think. Just the weekend of camping, being around other athletes, other triathletes, really just got all three of us really into the sport. So we made a pact the next year, we were going to go up and race it individually, because we just could not believe someone could do all three events at the same time. So the next day I came back, started training, and been racing ever since from 87.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how many times have you competed in nationals in triathlon?
The national championships. I'd have to kind of count them, but at least 7, maybe 8.
And how many times have you been to the World Championships?
I've been to the World Championships 7 times, and this year, if we have both of them, it'll be up. I'll add 2 to it, so it should be about 9.
Yeah, pretty impressive. So awesome. There's not a lot of people who can say that. One of the things I asked Bob for is if he could bring maybe one of his results that was impressive that he wanted me to share. This is a 3rd place finish from the desert. No, I'm just teasing. Bob's very accomplished. He has been on the podium, at least since I've known him over the past 15, 16 years. Whenever we do go to a race, Bob typically ends up on the podium. And I don't think I've ever been to a race with him where he hasn't. And that's dozens of races over the past 15 years. So impressive triathlon bio. So quickly, what is the triathlon? For those of you who are just listening in, triathlon is composed of 3 events. The first one is a sprint race start, usually to get in the water. And that's followed by a bike ride, and then you transition to a run. In this picture, the Stanford runner is just ahead of the Cal guy. And that's basically what a triathlon is. It comes in different lengths. There's an Ironman length, and then half of that's a half Ironman. Half of a half Ironman is a Olympic distance, and then about a 1/8 of an Ironman is a sprint. And I won't get into necessarily the distances. So really, we're trying to focus on some of the tactics that Bob has used over the past 20. Your first one was in
87.
In 87. So in the past 34 years, what are the tactics and the tricks that you've learned along the way that have kept you successful? So again, here's a quote by Colin Powell, who was the Secretary of State in the United States administration, is that there are no secrets to success. It is the result of preparation, hard work, and learning from failure. How would you agree with that?
I'd say that's right on.
Yeah.
There are people who come to the sport, from another sport where they were very successful. They, so they have a bit of an advantage. But for most of us, it's just hard work. So it comes from loving the sport so much that you just look forward to training every day. So it's almost like the 4th event. especially to a sprint race or shorter races. Nutrition becomes such a huge role in long races, but it's not so important in the short race. But it's the hard work. You've got to love to train. So the reward from hard work and training is racing, and then racing is so much fun.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you've always said that. So one of the things I always liked about Bob is he loves to race. And I don't know if everyone says that, because I know for me, if I'm racing, typically I'm getting up at 3:30 or 4 in the morning. I have no desire to eat anything. I'd probably stub my toe on the corner of the bed, getting up. I'm not used to getting up that early. You got to drive oftentimes to a race venue. You get there, you're still not awake. You're afraid to eat anything for fear it might upset your stomach. You think you get there early so you can position your bike appropriately, and you're one of the last ones to be there because everyone got up earlier than you did and was more prepared. So again, preparation is the key. So one of the things in preparation is training. So, you got to train appropriately. And what would you say are some of your training tactics when you're looking at your season, the things that you just know you've got to get done to be ready to race?
Yeah, a rule of thumb used to be 3 times the distance, so it doesn't always hold. So you do more for a sprint, less for an Ironman. But, basically, if you're going to be running a 5K, you better be running at least 10 miles a week. Now, normally I would double that as far as running for my training. And now, that's a long week for me now because I'm older. But same with swimming, 4 days a week. Now maybe I'm 3 days a week, but every sport, it would be every week, 3 to 4 training sessions per week, I think would be kind of standard for me, even in sprint racing, if you want to win. So
yeah, okay. There's a great tidbit there. Nutrition, certainly for me, is so important. It's massive. So tell us about, what is there anything in your nutrition maybe gives you an edge or just keeps you on the playing field that you can say it's because I pay close attention to making sure I get this or that, whether it's hydration or getting enough vegetables or whatever it is? Is there certain things that you do?
Definitely vegetables, greens. I do eat protein, but I try to eat, less meat than I used to. So maybe once every week to 10 days meat. Chicken though, fish. I'm not a big fish eater, so I wish I was better at eating fish, but a lot of vegetables. And carbohydrates, I try to play them by demand. So if I've got a big workout coming up, then I'll eat, sprouted wheat bread in the morning for sure. I always have oatmeal, sprouted wheat, shredded wheat, something like that for breakfast, just for the fuel. And then directly after the workout, I'll do the same. And then I'll try to curb it as much as I can. It's always a challenge with carbs. They're so easy, attainable everywhere. So I've really tried to focus on that with my current, because I feel weight is a huge issue. So if I'm racing at 160, I'm much more efficient at 148. So, say January, when I come out of the holidays, I come out of my base period in March, I start off around 160 and I race Sunday at 148. So
wow, that's amazing.
For me, it makes a huge difference. Running, climbing, if you can maintain the same strength, that's the key.
That's impressive.
Yeah.
And how do you lose weight during obviously with more training, but do you really watch caloric intake as well?
Caloric intake, I watch, and I use a scale and I weigh myself every morning, to kind of keep, then that kind of gives me an indicator. Well, Cinco de Mayo, all the Mexican food, no wonder I'm 155 or 150.
Sure.
So
yeah, and
hydration, huge issue. I'm always trying to stay hydrated.
Okay, that's awesome. So again, some tidbits here that are gospel. I think it's really important. Again, everyone's nutrition plan is going to vary, but finding what works for you and it's preparation that, as Bob mentioned, if he has a big race or a big workout coming up, he's preparing for that with nutrition. Most people don't think about that at all. Maybe they have a love a chocolate milkshake before a long run and they cramp up because they can't digest the dairy. These are things that a lot of people just don't take into consideration. Or I know when we work out, there's always people say, oh yeah, I didn't get a chance to eat, breakfast before we go on a long run or a long ride. And they don't do so well. They're not very efficient. And they're not training their bodies.
Yeah.
The other one is sleep. Do you have any secrets to your success with regards to sleep habits?
If anybody does, I'd like to hear them because I'm not a great sleeper. I sleep solid early and then, wake up at 4 in the morning or so. And, mind's thinking and I do get back to sleep, but it's one of the reasons why I don't get up at 6 because I'm back to sleep sound at 6. So luckily I'm tired.
Cash in those good sleep hours, right?
7:45 workout. I'm that's kind of would still be just waking up, but and I don't know if that's I've tried lots of different things to curb that, but from all of my peers that I talk to, as we get in our upper 60s, it seems to be a common occurrence.
We'll talk because I got some secrets for you.
Sweet.
So yeah, sleep's super important. There was an article I was reading talking about these top athletes like Serena Williams and Andy Potts, who's an Ironman. LeBron James are getting 10 to 12 hours of sleep a night. Again, these are professional athletes, and this is what they do for a living. So yeah, sleep's super important. So there's a quote by Abraham Lincoln. It says, "Give me 6 hours to chop down a tree, and I will spend the first 4 sharpening my axe." So again, preparation is so key, and I think that's one of Bob's clear paths to success is really being ready in so many aspects of the race. And he does it. It's probably second nature to you by now when you go to a race venue.
Yes.
That you've already thought about where you're going. You've played it out in your mind 1,000 times. You know the course. so let's talk a little about season planning. So again, there's race day planning, which we'll get to. This is going to be more planning the season. Are there any, again, tactics you have when you're planning your season? Because you race sometimes up to 10 times a year.
Yes, I used to always race 10. And now, depending how they fall, it's more like 7, but, it could be 8 in a season now. A little more challenge. It'll be a little more challenging with some races disappearing locally. I like to do local races. I like to support them. And I also like to practice racing. In training, I'll go hard many times, but I don't go as hard as I do when I'm racing. It just gives you that extra pump or something. So I like to practice racing through racing. And the more I race, then the more efficient I am at racing. Transitions, swimming, open water swimming, crowd swimming, how to be comfortable in that environment when the gun goes off and not panicking. Hard to swim when you're panicking. So, all of that just comes from doing it over and over. I just get better at it. So I prefer to race as many times as I can, but stay healthy.
And so are you documenting before the race starts all the races you're going to sign up for?
Definitely. So, and I'll start with my biggest race. So, in a season, say like this season, October, I'll be racing in Bermuda for the US for the World Triathlon Championships. So that's my big race. That's my A race. So everything before that is just leading up to that. It's all preparation really for that day. So my goal is to do all the work, pull it all in and log it up so that when I show up that morning of the race, I know I'm ready and I'm calm and I'm confident, and hopefully I can have my best day of the entire year that day. So
and that your bag is full.
And my bag is full.
You put the work in.
Yes.
This is just a quick slide about periodization. I'm not going to get too much about this, but it's kind of how you can scale your training. Each of those colors of each bar, it depicts either the run, bike, or swim, and that you try to increase with each week and then take an easy week and then build up again for a few weeks and then take an easy week. And I think that helps to aid in recovery and also to improve with performance. And then there is a taper at the end. And don't know if you, with sprints, do you ever taper?
Exactly. Now, where did this slide come from? Where did this information come from? And how long ago was it from?
Yeah, so periodization has been something that's been around for quite some time. Even, I think even the training Bible, they talk about periodization and they still talk about it. So I do follow periodization in my training.
Because that is first time I've seen it. That's exactly what I do
Okay.
right there. I do 3 weeks on, building, and then a rest week. 3, and then I start a little higher, and I go up and I go up. And my pyramids, I call them, they follow that exactly. And the biggest one there, then a huge taper. I'll taper even, especially for a big race like my October race. I'll taper for a good solid 10 days, to be ready for that. I'll be doing fast stuff, short. I'll skip days, maybe, 3 workouts at the most, just to stay loose and not be tight. But yeah, I'll take a nice big taper even for a sprint race.
So 10 days to me is not a long time, but some people are tapering. I have a half Ironman coming up. I'm going to taper for 2 weeks, which but again, you've got to stay active, but you're not doing anything that's really pushing yourself.
No.
You're just kind of going through the motions.
Yes.
Just
Staying off your legs,
kind of letting your muscles recover. And
Yeah.
I know for muscles to recover can take 4 to 6 weeks fully. But again, with shorter distances, you don't need to taper as much. It's a balancing act.
Mm-hmm.
But one of the things that Mark Allen, who's a 6-time Ironman world champion, most of you who follow Ironman have heard of Mark Allen. He won his last race in 1995 at the age of 37. And he didn't win an Ironman his first 6 times competing in the world championships, but then subsequently won 6. And he was voted in 2012, one of his last accolades, as being the world's greatest endurance athlete, which was a worldwide poll done by ESPN. And so he's amazing. And one of his quotes is, over prepare and under train. What do you think about that, Bob?
I think that's extremely smart, especially for long racing where you have to put in so much mileage. So for me in sprint racing, I still think it's really important, especially the older you get. Being just slightly undertrained is better than being overtrained at any time,
I think so many people go into races, whether it's a sprint or, well, probably less likely sprint, but Olympics, halves and fulls, overtrained and underprepared. So I think it's so important to kind of heed this quote if you're planning on racing this year. And it would be interesting to get other people's takes, other successful triathletes, and what their views are.
Yeah.
I know you're good friends with Julie Swale. I don't know if you guys have ever talked about the preparation or making sure you don't go into a race, overtrained,
Mm-hmm.
where you just haven't fully recovered.
I'll have to pick her brain on that.
Okay. Yeah. All right. This is another commonly quoted quote by Benjamin Franklin, which is, "By failing to prepare, you are preparing to fail." Have you ever been in a race where you just kind of wung it and weren't really prepared, maybe caught off guard, finding out there was a race maybe a couple days away that was close enough to go to, wasn't on your radar, that you went and just weren't prepared? Or in the early days, do you remember just not being prepared for a race?
I've done the desert a few times, many times actually, but I remember being there once, and it was the first time I'd even put on my wetsuit. But it's an early season race, so I took it a little bit too casually. Luckily, I was able to get into it, but just barely, and then first
so
time,
you were a little too heavy for your wetsuit.
Yeah, so the wetsuit was made for when I'm 152 or whatever, and I was 162. So I had to get help to get into it. I couldn't get a zip. And I'm like, oh man, I should have done this last week, right? Yeah. So and then also the first time I've been on my tri bike. I've been training my road bike the whole time. So first time I got on my tri bike and I'm kind of wobbly. I'm like, oh, this is such a different feel. So definitely, you need to be out there preparing for a race. But that's the first race of the season. It's in March. And I'm never really, really ready for that, nor would I want to be. I'm not really ready for races until June and July. So
that is such a competitive race because you get everyone from LA, San Diego,
Yeah.
Orange County,
But
Yeah.
it taught me something, and also I went to one of the races up at Benelli one time. I didn't have a helmet with me. Like, what, how long have you been racing, Bob? 20 years and you didn't bring your helmet? Come on.
Yeah. So one of
So
the things, yeah,
little
go ahead.
lessons like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So one of the things that's key is having a checklist. And I know when we go to camping,
Very key.
yeah, very
Yeah.
key. This one's blown up. Their USAT gives, if you join up with USAT, they can give you a checklist, but it's like the size of a large credit card. Probably not as helpful, but really everyone's a little bit different what you need. I know for me, if I have my bike up mounted on the roof of my car and I forget my locking key, that could be a huge problem, right?
Right.
Getting your bike on and off the rack. You're like, oh no. If you're traveling, making sure you bring your passport, just things like that, unless you're really prepared and focused on all these little things this information is readily available online. You can find this information. I know when we go camping to Wildflower, we go a couple weeks before or a month before,
Yep.
and people put together these preparation checklists, and they're 5 pages long. Because for that, you're really thinking about tents, sleeping bags, and it's amazing.
Yeah.
Wood, lighter fluid, it just goes on.
I'm not sure. Yeah, it's true though. Yeah.
And being prepared really for anything.
Yeah.
So again, I love that quote. So by failing to prepare, you're preparing to fail. And I think triathlon, because you have 3 events, you've got to remember your goggles and your cap, and then you've got to remember your biking shoes and your helmet, and then you've got to remember your running shoes and your visor and sunscreen and then your nutrition. So
I always walk through it kind of that way. I start with a sport at head to toe, and then I go through each sport just to make sure I have it in my bag. So maybe I brought it with me. It's in the motorhome or something, but I need to have it at the race site in the morning. So I always kind of re-go through it, because sometimes the day before you're training. So you're using your goggles, you're using your cap, whatever, your wetsuit. So you want to make sure race morning that you're prepared, because it's difficult to get back from transition to wherever you're camping or hotel or something.
So true.
So
true.
Yeah.
Okay. So I hope you're all getting all these, taking your notes. Next, just race week preparation. So there are going to be times where you're going to travel to a race, especially some of the bigger races like nationals, like worlds for sure. Rarely, I think the closest for worlds for you has been Hawaii.
Yes. Yeah.
Nothing really close. Maybe Vancouver.
Yeah. Chicago. Yeah.
Oh, Chicago was
I went
worlds.
to Edmonton, but that was still quite a ways. So
yeah.
Yeah.
So again, flying,
not next door.
Going to a foreign country, there's so much preparations or any other like tactics you have about making sure that you have benefited from when you're traveling to go to a race, that you just know you have to do something because it's burned you in the past, or something you've forgotten, or something that really makes a difference. Like, let's say you're going to Worlds, how many days in advance do you like to arrive?
I like to arrive practically a week ahead of time. I like to prepare there. I like to acclimate to the climate. You have to acclimate to the food, because sometimes you can't just go down to the local corner store and pick up a bottle of Gatorade, because on the island of Madeira in Portugal, they don't have Gatorade, so you have to find what is suitable, different foods, different ways to carve your diet, especially race morning. So I'll bring a lot of that stuff that I can with me in powder form. Also, oatmeal that I'm trained on, food I'm used to eating. But if I'm there, I'm always looking to try to find what I need. But, race day fuel, especially if it's a longer race, I'll bring it all with me.
Yeah.
Travel for sure. But
there's a couple other props we have here that I know you do. Is this is more for just training, compression socks. And I know you've kind of been religious wearing your compression socks. What are your thoughts on, let's say, like leading up to a race? Obviously, in sprints, you're not wearing socks.
No.
But what have you noticed with using compression socks, and if you have a particular brand that you like?
I like 2XU. I like their compression socks, and I just use a sleeve. I don't really like to kind of go over my whole foot, because I wear just a regular sock. But I have learned through some scar tissue injuries that I have just from doing this for so long. I've learned that these are really helped me to continue to stay injury free or keep it at bay. Even now I can feel my calves are kind of trash from a track workout last night, right? So, but I wore those and I use the stick
Yeah, the stick.
religiously too. So
This is a great tool. You can roll over your muscles.
Yeah.
Got two handles.
yeah,
You have a mini one
I have a little one and a big one.
and a big one.
Yeah.
So do you travel with this?
I travel with the little one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I find
And
this to be very
it's-
helpful.
If I don't have it, with me, if I can't find it, I'm nervous.
So
Yeah.
this is a big
It's really
preparatory
important to me.
preparation tool.
Yeah.
Is the stick.
Yeah, people probably, because I try to do it all the time. So sometimes we're waiting to start the ride on Saturdays. I'm over there rolling my legs out. But yeah, I found that Mike Collins, our swim coach, taught me that to just get the muscle, the fibers lined up. This was his philosophy. Instead of mine are kind of doing this, causing the injury.
Oh my
So this kind of puts them a little more like this. So 40 times per muscle, calves, quads, hamstrings.
Okay.
Yeah.
No neck.
Sometimes I'll get
No
like,
back.
if I have time, but I get that before the workout and after the workout. I do both, and not with too much pressure. I'm not trying to push out any injury. I'm just trying to set those fibers and just quickly get that lactate kind of settle around.
I also think it maybe wakes up.
Maybe, I don't know, but
It
it's
starts to stimulate
I've done that
function.
for these both. And that seems to help me as I age.
Yeah.
Now, when I was in my 30s, 40s, I didn't seem to need it, I didn't have any trouble with injuries, but now I do. So
Yeah. Our bodies just don't heal as well as they
Oh,
did
yeah.
when we were
Yeah.
younger.
I
We
still
won't
don't-
get into the supplements. That's going to be another discussion.
Sure.
Racing and training using supplementation. Another key thing that I like to use is a race belt you wear around your chest and a watch that can tell you a lot of information. Do you use heart rate training? There you go.
I keep it on all the time. Yeah.
And so there are
Constant.
people we just talked about that kind of have graduated from using it, especially in the sprints. You're not really pacing yourself. It's really an all-out effort.
Yeah.
Do you find that when you're racing a sprint, you use your heart rate as a gauge to effort?
I do, but I'm always monitoring more, kind of more green line than red line, really. I'm taking a peek to see where I'm at, but not that it's going to change a lot, because sprint racing is more not just yourself. Somebody passes you, well, you got a choice. Now I'm no longer winning, or I'm further off. I'm getting beat, so you have the option to immediately accelerate. And then, if you're already on red line, that means you're just going to be going further into red line as long as you can. And then if you can't, then you're off and then you lose. But it's more instantaneous. So that's just how I use it. Sometimes I won't look again. I was at Worlds in Australia, and it's draft legal. So that means you come out of the water, you're looking for someone to draft with, to get in a little group. And I'm on an Australian guy's wheel, and he was strong as could be. So within the first 10 minutes of that ride, I looked down and I'm about 7 beats over my aerobic threshold already. And we just started, so no run or anything. So I just never looked again. And it was just a very painful day. But that's sprint racing. It only lasted for an hour and 10 minutes.
So that's what we're talking about. We're talking specifically about sprint racing, triathlon, and it is a different animal. It's a very different mindset when you go into preparation and also with your training and also race day. So what are some of the things, I put down race day rested and ready, and we'll get into during the race in just a moment. But first we'll focus on race day. You kind of mentioned making sure you lay everything out. You have your bag, you're there. Are there any other tidbits of information? Again, this is a picture of somebody of a transition area. This is usually what it looks like before a race. There's bikes everywhere. There's people everywhere. Everyone's trying to get into the mindset of, getting ready, knowing your wave start, how important that might be.
It's huge. Yeah.
You're going to be starting early?
You got to know exactly when you're going to go, and you need to be ready before. So I time everything. I like to be there super early. I like to have my bike in the best spot. You know, even though it's only 3 feet from the next best spot, I like to be in that spot. So when everybody else comes in, they're like, "Oh, I wanted that spot," and I'm like, "Yeah, it's a great spot. I was here early." So it's a little game we all play.
Everyone plays
all
it
play
for
it.
sure. Because it's nice to have your bike at the end of a rack because you know where it is.
Yeah,
It's much easier to find.
Yeah.
And
we like to be as close as we can to bike out. A lot of times bike out and bike in are in the same spot. So I would rather run without my bike through the transition area, even though everybody covers the same distance. So that's something I try to do. And if I can put the bike in the day before, I will, because if I don't, someone else is already going to be there. So that's what we did on Sunday. Even there's the 3 best spots for the bikes were taken up by the 3 top guys in my age group. You know,
they got there before you.
Dave, no, I let Terry have it.
Oh.
Just because, you know, we're brothers. But I let him have it, and I took to the next one. And
So that could have
another guy,
cost you a
David
few
Martin.
seconds.
Yeah, could.
That could have been the difference between second and
Yeah,
first.
unfortunately, it wasn't. Yeah. So
Any other race day tidbits? So again, positioning your bike, knowing where it is.
Yeah, knowing where it is for sure. You got to mark it, and then I because sometimes transition areas are huge, and it's really hard to find your bike, and you don't want to lose it. So I look for landmarks, things. I have a really bright orange towel. I'll set right down if they let me. Sometimes they're very picky at nationals and worlds about what you can bring in. So I try to make sure I know exactly where it is. I walk it coming in so I can find that spot. And I'll do that a number of times till I'm comfortable with where it is. And then also heading out to the run, you know, I'm there, you know, as early as I can be in transition. And then I do a whole warm up, you know, routine that I like to do before the race to get ready. But in transition, I like to have the least amount of stuff there as possible, because I don't want to spend any time there. I want to spend seconds there. So, you know, it's just all I'll have will be a small towel, bright colored one, with my running shoes on it. And basically that's it. That's all that'll be in my transition for race. Because come off the bike, you know, you drop your helmet, you leave your glasses on. Sometimes if it's hot, I'll have a hat to put on real quick as I'm running out. But I already roll up my race number underneath my you know, tri-suit, and then that's under my wetsuit. So it's on. I don't have to think about it. I don't have to put it on. And I'm just down there. I come in off the bike, put the bike down. Shoes are already off on the bike. I throw on my running shoes, no socks. Off I go. It's just that fast. It shouldn't take more than just seconds, you know. So
yeah,
that's always my goal. But so I don't like to have a whole bunch of stuff around. I don't need a bucket to clean my feet, or, you know, one to sit on. You know, it's just.
Those are some thoughts.
Yeah,
some people bring in a big 5-gallon bucket, use it as a seat. I agree with you. That's kind of how I am.
Now, maybe in a year or so, I might need that bucket to sit on. Because, you know, I can't bend over for it. Put on my shoes. Maybe.
But I think it's so key, again, just to kind of reiterate what you just said, having a great position or a landmark where your bike is. Sometimes you have leeway, but oftentimes you're racking your bike with other people in your age group. But having it towards the end in a kind of an open alleyway where you can come in and get your bike and be able to get out, getting close to the entrance and exit for the transition, and really having everything set up. I know so many times you can be in transition and all of a sudden you see some bikes falling over and helmets go rolling and you're like, oh my God, these poor people are going to come out of the swim. They're going to have to, it's going to be a laundry sale trying to figure out where their glasses are and their helmets. That's another thing, is really making sure that bike is not teetering,
definitely,
and it's locked in.
You can see this helmet on this one, you know, and I, you know, a lot of times I'll do that too, but a lot of times I won't put my helmet on my aero bars because somebody comes in, you know, different wave or something, and they bump you, the helmet goes rolling, and you have to go search for it. So I set it in right next to my shoes, you know.
Okay, that's smart.
Yeah. Now my bike shoes will already be on the bike, so they'll be next to my run shoes right there.
That's not a bad idea, because that's not going to take you a whole lot of time.
No,
but I've seen transitions where
because
bikes fall over and helmets go rolling.
Exactly. Yeah.
But I also like the point of really going back and forth multiple times before the race starts.
So
What does it feel like when you're coming out of the run? You've got a wetsuit on, you're huffing and puffing. How do you know what lane you're going to go down where your bike is? And if you do that 3 or 4 times before the race starts, you'll know. That will be second nature. You'll know where your bike is. And same as coming in from the bike to know where your transition is to get your shoes. You may be coming in from a different entry point, and you don't know which lane you're going to go in. Again, it could be just a sea of bikes. And if you're not clear and you go down the wrong lane, it can cost you quite some time thinking, where's my bike? And then you got to find out, you got to go all the way back out to the end of the lane and then go over one and come back down. And so super important. That's one thing I've always tried to do myself in preparation before a race. Maybe I learned it from you. But so many times people will say, yeah, I got stuck in transition and I couldn't find my bike.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, poor preparation leads to just poor performance. And that's what happens. So
I'll always line up with a couple of, especially at a big, like say a wildflower transition, it's huge. They'll have flags around usually, or some type of a tree or a porta potty or something. So I'll try to look for a couple of different things that I'm going to look for, the big things. Okay, so I know that, all right, when I pass this flag, I'm getting close. And then it's the next one on the left. And then I'll make that turn. Because sometimes you can't really see the little numbers they'll have for it.
Mhm.
But once you start down that lane, it's a long haul
Right.
and you can't get out.
That mistake, it's costly.
Yeah.
All right. So a race is truth in motion. What do you think about that? That's another quote by Mark Allen. What do you think about that quote? What does that mean to you? A race is truth in motion.
I'd say for me, it just kind of is what it is. It's you, and it's the course, and it's how you just get through that yourself. There's nothing else involved. It's just what it is. So, and of course you're moving motion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like there's no,
How about yourself?
for me, the racing, the competition, again, all the preparation that goes into just getting yourself to the start line, from signing up for the race to doing all the training and all the things we talked about. That's what truth is. It's laying it on the line. It's that day during the race where you're cruising, and the payoff is you're gonna have a great race. You're gonna feel good about yourself if you have the confidence, you've done the training, and you're prepared.
Right.
And it makes it such a more enjoyable event.
So maybe the truth is it's just yourself. You can't buy it. You can't pay someone to do it for you. It comes from yourself. So that's the honesty or the truth in it. Everybody's equal. It's not, somebody's not, because they're at a different level of what they can purchase or buy.
Right. I like that.
Car racing, the biggest team, say, the biggest Formula One teams, they always win. They've got so much huge backing. They've got 3 cars instead of 1. The small guys, they're always fighting for 10th, or 12th or whatever. But triathlon's different.
Yeah.
We're all the same.
Yeah.
So.
Yep. You can't fake your way to the podium.
No, gotta earn it.
So again, along those same lines of earning victory is another quote by Mark Allen, is one is not owed victory just because of hard training. And that's going to be our next part. It must still be earned on the day of competition. And I think this is where I think more than anybody else I can think of, this is where you shine, is that day of competition. And what are some of your racing tactics, mindset going into the race? You're there, gun goes off, you're swimming. What are some of the things that are going through your mind, whether it's during the swim, during transitions, during the bike, during the run, that keep you from getting overly anxious, keep you level-headed, keep you focused and confident?
While I'm actually racing?
While you're racing. So now it's racing, your heart rate's through the roof, you're spewing saliva,
Yeah.
you're sweating.
So it's a bit of a blur sometimes. So it's hard to really go back and pinpoint anything. It's always pushing though. I'm always trying to go a little harder if I'm capable, because you never know. On a certain day, you can, especially if you've done all the work and you're ready. That day is in training what you can do. You know what your mile repeats are. You know what average speed you can hold on the bike. What your pace is at masters swimming. But on race day, it's a time where you can really test that. Like, okay, that's my normal pace, but is that all I have? So if your tank is completely full on all the other preparation, a race day you may be able to pull out something you didn't think you could. So you may be able to actually achieve your best performance because of all the work you've done and the taper. A lot of times in training, I don't really taper a lot. I'm hardly ever rested. I'm hardly ever feeling, wow, I'm so strong today because I've rested.
No
But
soreness.
on race day, I want to feel, man, I can really go today because I'm rested. I'm tapered. I've done a ton of work. So I think that all that kind of comes in while I'm racing. I'm always trying to see if I can kick one more gear. And then, of course, if I get challenged, if someone comes up on me, or if I'm actually, especially sprint racing, that's what's so exciting about it. A lot of times you're head to head, you're shoulder to shoulder, and then you're really racing. So that's when you test that. That's when you find out all that work paid off. And then it's just kind of just not giving down, not backing down. You just, if you like that, you like that pain, and you like, going super deep into the house of pain. I mean, like way in on the couch, comfortable there. If you're comfortable in that environment, somebody else isn't. When you're side by side, sometimes you can drop them, or you can pull a victory out.
And you mentioned the pain of racing, and what they say, it's a moment of pain. You suffer for a moment of enduring pain for a lifetime of success or victory.
Yeah,
and there's a quote there.
Sprint racing only hurts for an hour and 15, but it really hurts for an hour and 15.
So another quote, but I wanted to kind of talk to you a little bit more about the house of pain, the couch of pain. But this is a quote by Mark Allen: "As pain is the song of the working body, intense pain is its symphony. Enjoy the music." So it's almost like enjoy the pain.
Yeah, very artfully put.
And I think we've talked about this before, jokingly, in training and in races. And there is a point where we all feel the same pain.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess, they talk about who can dig deeper and endure more pain. Part of it is training to be used to the pain.
Be used to it. Yeah, you don't just do it, So let's say you're used to running on the track at a 7-minute pace. Well, you're not going to race at 6:30.
Right.
Yeah, where's that going to come from? So you have to suffer and get used to, okay, so this is what 6:30 feels like. So then in a race, you can be like, oh, I'm at 7, maybe I can go 6:30. And then you get there and you're like, oh, this really hurts a lot, but I know this, I've been here before.
Mm-hmm.
So
getting your body used to it and your mind used to it, because I think a lot of it is,
then you can get to 6:20 or something. So,
they talk about that in marathon runners, that everyone feels the same pain. This is on the world level. The elite marathon runners, the Olympians, they all feel the same pain, but some people have the ability to kind of dampen that pain. Now, again, it is something you can actually acclimate to, like you mentioned, through training and preparation. So, anything else you want to add about pain? And do you look forward to feeling the pain during a race, or not necessarily, unless it's needed?
Not necessarily, but I find it exciting, and for some reason, maybe because I've done so many races, that I seem to find myself in that position, on kind of a regular basis, because I'm not so elite that I'm off the front. I'm always either in the mix, or I'll never have the fastest swim or bike or run, but when you add all three up, I might be a couple of seconds in front of the other guys, so I always have to kind of earn that or come from it. So it's something I've just gotten comfortable with. But even comes to mind a wildflower race that we were talking about. cramped because I went so hard on the bike, and I got passed by a guy. So then from then on, I'm chasing him. I knew he was in the lead, and no, we were fighting for second and third, and finally came around the curve, and I could see him up ahead finally. And then as soon as I can see someone, I'm like a pit bull, you know. I'm gonna do everything I can to catch up with him, you know. So sure enough, on the steepest hill climbing up, I caught him, and then I went by him super fast, and I thought, he's gone, he's off the back. Awesome, you know, I got second. And then all of a sudden, I hear somebody coming up. I figure it's a young guy. It's him. He's right on my shoulder. He's right here. And I'm immediately like, oh boy, I'm in trouble now. You know, so we ended up running shoulder to shoulder all the way through, all the way down the hill. And I'm thinking to myself, because you always have one guy talking to the other, you know, and I'm thinking to myself, he's probably an X800 runner in college, you know.
This is your talking
this
yourself
is my bad
down,
guy, the negative guy talking.
negative
guy. Yeah. So we're coming into the finish. We've got about maybe 300 yards to go, and I'm at that point. I'm like, it hurts so much for so long now. I should probably just let him go because he's probably an X800 runner. And we end up coming into the leader, the guy who usually wins, oftentimes a world-class guy, and we come up on him so fast because we are running so fast at that point that all of a sudden now I'm not going for third because that guy tells you third's podium, third's good. You're okay with that. Let that guy go, you know. So this guy just says, hey, we got a chance for first place. So it's all or nothing. So at the 300 mark, I just
300, like
300
yards to go
on the run. I just threw it down.
A little bit
And the guy, the big tall guy, the 800 runner, thought he was. He immediately I could feel it. He's thinking, it's too soon. We can't sprint from here. But I sprint from 300 out. Got the other guy who just went off the back, the leader. He was gone immediately. But from first to third, separated by 10 seconds.
Wow.
After 2 hours and 30 minutes.
Oh my gosh.
So
that's a great story.
That's where it comes in, and that was Wildflower. Yeah, I've had many races that have been just like that. So it's good to train to get ready for preparation and put it all together so that you can do that.
Otherwise, you'll never have that opportunity.
Chance of that. And that was total glory, you know. Winning that race, it was like, yeah, it'll always stick with me. You know?
That's great. You know, you did tell me one story recently where when you first started triathlon, you were in the transition and you can hear someone else go, oh, that guy, Joe Blow is here, John Doe is here, dang it. And you had always thought, man, wouldn't it be great one day if somebody said, oh man, gosh, that Bob Kinney is here. Maybe tell that story in your own words. I kind of summarized it already, but
I don't know if on this, can I mention someone's name?
Yeah.
Yeah. So my first training partner was a gentleman named Marty Dugard, who's actually a very famous writer now. And he was a good friend of Bob Babbitt's, and he was in the sport for quite a while, and he was a great athlete. And so we go to races together. We're at Wildflower. Wildflower is always the biggest race that we did. And he heard that, you know, he heard somebody say, you know, Bob Kyler's here or somebody, right? Somebody famous, you know. And he said, God, wouldn't that be awesome? He said, that's my goal. I want to go to a race and hear someone, you know, there's 150 guys in your age group in the transitionary. I want to hear somebody say, oh shit, Marty Dugard's. So years later, I mean, it took, you know, I raced and trained hard for a long time before I got any glory, you know. But finally, I was a Wildflower, and I heard somebody say, oh, shoot, Robert Kinney's here. And I was just like, I thought of Marty Dugard. So when I got home, I called him up, said, you wouldn't believe what happened. And I got the race, and they said, I heard some guy say, shoot, Robert Kinney's here. And Marty was like, that's so cool. He was the only one probably who could understand what that meant, the significance of having the respect of your peers and having earned it. You know, that was awesome. So that was a nice,
that's great.
The little victories in our sport, you know.
Yeah, because again,
we don't win it.
It's not being televised. There's no money in it.
There's no
audience, really.
I remember when I was starting off, where I was bartending at a place. I told them, yeah, I do triathlon. And the person said, why do you do that? is there any money in it? And I remember looking at him and I remember thinking, money in it? I remember just telling him, you wouldn't get it. Yeah, you would not get it because it's not about money. Yeah, right.
You spend a lot of money.
A lot of money. Yeah, for sure.
I work in the medical tent at the World Championships for the Ironman distance. And we are told not to pull athletes off the course because on average that year, they've spent $30,000 because you have to do an Ironman to qualify.
That's right.
And then you got to travel to Hawaii, and hotel rates are through the roof, expensive. Flights are expensive. And then all the training, all the physical therapy, all the massage therapy, all the clothing, the accessories, the cost of a bike, cost of shipping a bike, your nutrition that you have to train on, the gadgets, it adds up.
Yeah, it's big time.
So it is kind of a rich man's sport. But I love the pain aspect of the racing and seeing if you can outduel somebody, because it is mental and it's these games you play. And part of it's just having confidence, like I'm going to win.
And even the last Orange County race I did, was, 65, 69. I raced against a guy who lives up in the Ventura area, and he had just beat me like a month before at Wildflower. He was first, I was second, but we had a pretty decent battle there. But not, he was a great runner, just especially in the hills, he was outbeat me. But we got to Orange County, same scenario. Get out on the run, there he is. We're right. I got out of transition quicker, and then he finally caught me as we started into those hills, And I'm like, oh man, this is gonna really hurt. So we ran shoulder to shoulder all the way, and then he got ahead of me up the big steep hill. He got away on the backside.
Del Lago.
I chased him all the way into the finish chute. I chased him, but I didn't catch him. So he was first, I was second. But I was completely satisfied with that race. So we get in, and he's sitting in a chair on the side. Looks like he's gonna die. I felt the same way. I didn't even see what I looked like. It felt awful. And he looked up at me and he said, Bob, he said, I never ever want to race you again. And I immediately thought, that's probably one of the nicest compliments a fellow racer who loves to win just as much as I do, has ever paid me.
Right.
Like,
and at that age,
race,
65 to 69,
he earned that race, but I made him earn it. He had to work, and so did I. So taking second, I was completely satisfied with.
But I love it. And this is one of those sports where, I think of soccer, I think of, football, basketball. There are times when you're winded and you can't go, but it's the racing. That you don't get a chance to just kind of get your breath. There's no timeouts.
No.
And it's enduring that feeling of intense pain, because part of it is knowing and timing it to say, I can endure this for this period of time. And I can kind of wait till I, get within, 400 yards of the finish or 300 yards of the finish where I can lay it down, or how you play the mind game with that competitor, staying right with them, even though it hurts, and just see if they back down a little bit, and then you can surge ahead and so forth. And it's a unique opportunity. Again, you've got to be in that position.
Definitely.
All right, so what else do we have here? So again, we're almost at the end of this, just a couple more quotes, a couple more slides. Again, I want to thank you, Bob, for being here. But part of racing is really expect chaos and respond appropriately. What do you have to say about that?
Yeah, it's always like that, you have to just be ready for that. Chaos might be a huge swim start with like I said, 150 guys hitting the water in a pretty narrow chute, and you're getting banged on, people grabbing your feet, because everybody goes hard for the first 50. Even someone who can't swim well, they might die after that, and then you accelerate. But still, you don't usually get out without getting touched. You're going to get trashed, and that's the definition of chaos. So,
swim start, mass swim start.
Yeah, you can get 100 yards out and be heading for the side, thinking like, I'm done. I'm exhausted. My adrenaline's kicked up. My goggles are missing. Chaos happens. So you just have to be ready keep calm, keep your own pace, and then get into it. Once you get through that, chaos can come at any time. Cramps, I've had major trouble with cramps before, but just work through them, kind of key it down. Eventually it'll go away and you can race like heck.
Yeah. So that's great. That's great.
Yeah.
I kind of want to let you finish that thought because it is so true that the unexpected is to be expected in almost any triathlon. You just never know. It could be a weather thing, it could be the wind, pushing on your, getting you off balance on your bike. It could be humidity. It could be, they've run out of water. When I did Ironman Canada, they ran out of water for half the racers.
Yeah.
Fortunately, I was in the first half of the race, so I had water throughout my bike. But I think a lot of people, they didn't have water. And so again, part of it is just being okay with the unexpected. And I think part of that comes from experience, preparation, and just knowing going to race, things are going to happen. I can't predict, but when they do, I'm going to roll with it.
Yeah.
And I'm going to maybe put it to my advantage.
So maybe trying not to avoid a certain style of race. Sometimes the harder races, hilly races, hot climates, Wildflower used to be the perfect one, camping, sleeping on the dirt before the race, all those things just kind of make it where other races can seem easy. So if you're prepared for a hard effort, and that's what you're used to and that's what you're at, when it just kind of trains you for the chaos, okay, maybe it's going to be hot, maybe it's going to be raining, who knows until the day of the race usually, right? So I think that helps prepare you so that anything else kind of seems easy.
Yeah.
It's all downhill.
Yeah. And again, more preparation.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people go into a race
and comes back
and they're probably not thinking about weather. Like, oh, do you know there was rain predicted for today? And people get caught off guard, but looking at the weather, and being
cold
prepared.
water,
Cold water. And so, and swimming in that type of temperature water. So you're prepared. So when you're going to swim in a lake that's in a cold area, a cold climate, you're not caught off guard.
Even lakes can get super rough if the wind kicks up.
Yeah, sure. Lake Tahoe. So again, that's the end. This is a picture of Bob in the middle there with the dolphin, the green dolphin shorts, winning at Bud Light. So this has got to be mid 80s. This is before I was even into the sport.
Mid 80s, I was racing 35, 39.
Yeah, forgive the glare. But again, for you out there, I'm going to see if we can just show our faces again here. And want to thank you guys for tuning in. I hope this was enjoyable. For those of you who don't know much about triathlon, maybe give it a try. For those of you who do enjoy the sport, hopefully this was gospel information that you can apply as you prepare for the 2021 season, which is underway. Again, you just raced last weekend.
Yeah,
took second.
Awesome.
It's one of your nemesis. So again, it's a great sport. If you have any questions, again, I'm at ocsportsandwellness.com, Sam Sunshine. Bob is not a coach, so I don't know if I want to give anybody your information other than say if you happen to be in the 65 to 69 year age group as a male and you see his name on the list, you're going to say, damn, that Bob Kenny is here. So thank you very much.
Fun visiting.
Dude, that was great. Thank you. Thank you for listening. And until next time.